So in class, we just got done talking about T cell development and B cell development and the roles that those two things can play. And I just wanted to discuss with you guys the thing known as the hygiene hypothesis and why I think that is bullshit. So, if you know anything about me and you've seen my video on Cook's postulates, you know that I think that we're, in terms of like new age diseases, new world diseases, inflammatory diseases, and cancers, things like that that aren't straightforward, we need new models to assess these diseases. The current established methodologies that we're using are not effective. We're using linear disease models because of the success of the germ theory of disease to account for extremely complicated and dynamic diseases, right? And I feel like the hygiene hypothesis is just that, an extension of the germ theory of disease as a linear disease model. If I get this happen here, then these are going to be results, or if this thing didn't happen, then this is going to be the direct result. The problem is with the hygiene hypothesis, at least from what I've understood about it, is that it isn't very well versed on anything besides a statistical correlation. And if you know anything about me, correlative does not mean causative. And that's why I don't like medicine. And that's why I like science. But the biggest arguments that people have made for me or made against me was, and I've had really smart people say this, like, hey, you know what, if I had Crohn's disease or if I had ulcerative colitis, I'd go and I'd infect myself with a parasite. Inflammatory response could have something to work with. But when you actually look at it, there's not a lot of data that supports that claim. People point to the statistical correlation that in countries where you have higher amounts of parasitic infections, you do have a lower amounts of inflammatory diseases. And that is true. That is a true statistical correlation. But you need to understand that in places like Brazil or places that are rampant with malaria, the population is lower. Like, there's the serious differences between, one, population growth size, and two, the population size itself. Another issue is, mechanistically speaking, we just learned about T cell development. T cells develop, and T cells are the ones who are in charge of changing the antibody isotype. And so if you have a parasitic infection or lack thereof a parasitic infection, that really isn't going to do much, to at least to the current understanding that we're having here, to the overall result. Not a lot of immunologists that I've talked to actually support this idea of parasitic infections. And just over here in the left-hand corner of the book is Parasite Rex. And this is one of my favorite authors, Carl Zimmer. He's a phenomenal science writer. This book right here taught me more about parasitology than my actual parasitology course did. But he kind of is talking about parasites and discussed links to it, but he also wrote a very interesting article where he sat down with Ruslan Mhedzitov and talked to him about current established ideas of where immunology and where allergies are coming from, especially for things like asthma and or things like that. And the issue there is more or less just cellular damage as the root cause. Anything that's damaging to your cells is going to initiate an immune response. And I like that idea a little bit better. But in terms of mechanistically speaking, the hygiene hypothesis has a lot of ground to cover if you want to convince anyone really in the immunology community that that is the reason for these really seemingly bizarre diseases, right? Like immunodeficiency diseases like eczema or ulcerative colitis or anything like these. These are horrible diseases, yeah, but I don't think that it would be something as simple as lacking an parasitic infection. And when you look at what life is like and you look at the changes in the standards of public health and medicine, yeah, that gap is being filled over time, but at the end of the day, the stuff that we don't consider the first world, but the things that we more the third world countries there, they don't have the means to really even deal with, one, the population size, two, the aging population, and then three, just developmentally. I think we need to have a more thorough understanding of that.